had no idea after he left that I'd be opening an art gallery until I found out I couldn't show my own artwork locally.
How would you feel knowing that you transformed this from a, like a animal farm into a gallery?
I don't know how he would have felt about it. He passed away before I did this.
Okay.
I don't know if he'd have been behind me or not.
Okay.
He was like my family. None of them were very enthusiastic about my painting. Everybody thought it was such a waste of time. I didn't realize till I got sick that it would sell, and it did, so. I've been a painter since I was 8 years old. If you want to hear the story about how I got started, I'll tell you. I was visiting an aunt over the summer. My mother used to ship me out every summer. And my aunt had a little summer house, and she said, your cousin moved away, her daughter, and she left a painting in the summer house. It's just a sketch, and I want you to go out and paint it. And I was 8 years old, and I said, I don't know how to paint. She said, yes, you do. That painting hung in her summer house for 50 years until it burned down.
Oh. Do you have a picture of it?
No.
And the artists and everything. But they waited 10 years before they interviewed me to find out how it all got started. I guess they finally figured maybe it was going to work after 10 years.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing the gallery for then?
We just started our 13th year in September.
13, wow. And what kind of people come by to your gallery? I mean, while I was here, it was very international.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Last week, I had a lady from Ireland sign up to do a show.
I took 1 week of art training when I was in high school, and the art teacher and I came to a big disagreement, and I ended up in home economics, learning how to cook.
So now you can run all of this.
If she could see me now, right?
That's an amazing story. You told me you did so many jobs. I mean, maybe we can't even count them. Which one? Do you have a favorite one that you like?
My two favorite jobs, when I was working in electronics up in the Bay Area, and when I was driving school bus down here. I used to do that with the kids on my bus. Every child that got on my bus, I would speak to them. Good morning. Oh, that's a cute shirt you've got on. Are those shoes new? How are you this morning? Every one of them. And when they got off of my bus at the school and when I took them home, I spoke to every one of them. Because I wanted them to know I know they're here, and that I care that they're here. Yeah. And it was one of the important ways of controlling children because they want recognition. And they don't want to feel that they're isolated. And if you ignore them because they're not bad kids, so why pay attention to them, It's one of the reasons I never had trouble with any of the kids. They couldn't get over. They'd always give me the worst routes in the district, and I never had trouble with them. Yeah. One of the second year I was driving, I subbed the first 3 weeks, and I walked into the dispatcher's office one day. Did I already tell you this? And one of the drivers was on the radio, and she was screaming into the radio, "You better send somebody out here. I'm not moving this goddamn bus another foot. These kids are so out of control," right? And that was a Thursday afternoon, and the dispatcher turned to me, and she said, "Starting tomorrow, this is your route." I was route number 13. I said, oh, great, thanks, you know. So the next day I go pick up the kids. Of course, they thought I was a substitute, you know. And in the morning, they're not so bad. But in the afternoon, you know, they're wide awake and they're ready. These were high school and junior high mix.
Sweet perfume, those little roses bloom, and I want to walk with you my whole life through.
I was so happy they put a picture of the chapel in the magazine because Frank built that chapel, and he got to see that just before he passed away, that it was in the chapel. And it made him feel like he really did do something, you know.
It's amazing.
Yeah, you feel very comfortable and peaceful in there. And 6 weddings so far that I know of.
Oh, you perform weddings?
No, I don't. I tell them is all they need is a minister and a witness. If they don't have a witness, I'll show up.
I love that.
Yeah,
Lord.
I had a couple show up on a Thursday afternoon and wanted to know if they could get married. And I said, sure, is all you need is a minister and a witness. And they said, well, what does it cost? And I said, it doesn't cost anything. And they said, how about tomorrow afternoon? And the next day they showed up with about 8 people and got married in the chapel.
How do you feel about those?
I think that's great,
Yeah.
you know. In June we had a wedding here with over 100 people, and they got married in front of the chapel. And then they had a big buffet here and everything. And I told them I don't charge anything, because all I expect them to do is clean up after themselves and not leave me a mess, you know. And so far everybody's been great, because I have all kinds of events here, you know. Retirement parties, anniversary parties, book club meetings, I mean, you name it. And as long as they clean up, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's, of course, if they leave me a mess, I'm going to come look them up,
Of
you
course.
know.
Yeah. But you really organize also with the chairs. Do you have somebody to help you? Or?
Yeah, matter of fact, he just took a bunch of chairs in the gallery so
Okay.
people could sit and listen to the music.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Ron, he lives in the mobile here.
Okay.
He's my groundskeeper.
Okay, that's
And he
good.
takes care of the grounds. And
Primrose Lane, life's a holiday on Primrose Lane, just a holiday on Primrose Lane.
I used to think that everything had to look like what you were painting. And when I was 14, I went to see the Van Gogh exhibit in San Francisco. And it changed my whole concept of art,
Okay.
because I found out that art doesn't have to look exactly what you're looking at, you know.
Yeah.
So it made a big difference.
Yeah.
Primrose Lane, with you. Oh, I can't explain when we're walking down the Primrose Lane, even roses blooming in the rain.
Community here, is there?
it's getting to be a bigger art community than it was when I first came here. Most of it was in Joshua Tree, but it's spreading out all over the valley. When I first opened this gallery, the reason I opened it is because the only local gallery here in 29 would only show desert paintings. And I thought, well, there were a lot of artists out here that don't paint just desert paintings. And there's a lot of different kind of art than paintings. And so I've even had quilt shows here, because that is a form of art
Yeah,
too.
of course.
And I mean, as long as it's not pornographic or political, they can show it.
This gallery that opened originally, it's set up on a first come, first served basis. You just sign up for a show and you wait until your turn comes. I was booked solid through 2024 for this gallery.
I know, because I had to wait 5 years.
Right. and so I decided that if I remodeled that one, I could move everybody up so they didn't have to wait so long.
Yes.
So now it's only like 1.5 years out instead of 5 years out.
Wow. How did you think? I think it's kind of extraordinary system that you created. I mean, I don't think many people have thought something like that. 'Cause
Well,
it's very unique.
I don't know of anybody that
Yeah.
does it for nothing. You know, they're all in
Yeah.
it for the money.
Yeah.
And, I didn't get an opportunity to show my artwork, and you can't, most galleries won't even talk to you if you've never been in a gallery. And so I set this up to give the first-time artists as well as the long-time artists an opportunity to show in a gallery. So at some point, beyond that, if they go to a gallery and they say, well, have you ever shown in a gallery? They can say, yes, I showed in the Glass Outhouse.
Yeah.
And they can look it up, and I have a 5-star rating on this gallery.
Yeah.
So then they'd be interested in looking at your work.
Yeah.
That's the, you know,
That's
I want to give them the opportunity I didn't get,
Yeah.
you know.
In place, like, you know, like the first Saturday of the month, was that, you know, your first attempt to organize it? Was it always like that?
Well,
or?
what happened was the gallery in town, there was only one at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they always had their reception for 55, almost 60 years on the first Sunday of the month.
Oh.
And the visitor center would have a show on the first Friday of the month.
Okay.
So I thought, well, nobody's on Saturday, and I'm not going to be stepping on any toes, so I took the first Saturday of the month. And Joshua Tree has, on the second Saturday, they have what they call as art crawl,
Oh.
because the galleries are close enough together that you can walk from one to the other.
Oh, I didn't even know there were art
Yeah.
galleries in Joshua.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now I think there's only one. Most of them have closed down. The rent's getting so high and everything, and they just can't make it.
How did you have the idea of a gallery? Because were you painting already? I mean, you're
Well,
a painter, right?
I've been painting since I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And after my husband was gone, and I couldn't work anymore, I went to work out here at various jobs. And then after I couldn't work anymore, my first love's always been painting. So I joined the local art gallery,
Mm-hmm.
but they wouldn't show any of my work because all they wanted was desert paintings, and I don't paint desert scenery. So I thought, well,
Have you tried?
to hell with them, you know. I have these buildings, I have to pay taxes on them whether I'm using them or not. And brace yourself. I'll tell you how much we paid for it.
Okay.
$3,200
Wow.
for 5 acres of land with a cabin
Wow.
on it.
Wow.
Back in 1976. And when we moved down here, then before we moved down, we hired a contractor to build a garage to make an L shape with the cabin so we could add on to it when we moved down. And we moved down with a little travel trailer, and we slept in it and everything while we were building. And my husband and I, neither one of us knew anything about building, but he went to the library and got a book on carpentry and one thing and another, and the two of us built all of this.
How did you gather the kids?
Well, I used to every year empty all 3 rooms of the gallery out in December for 29 Palms High School, Yucca Valley High School, and any homeschooled kids that wanted to show.
That gallery, that's a pretty new extension there.
Yes, we just opened it in September.
It looks really beautiful.
Yes,
like,
it is.
So how many more galleries? I mean, there's like, what, 6?
5.
5.
There's 5. And then the hallway is for 18 and under artists in art.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the kids in the high school classes are just taking the art class because it's easy and they can slip through, you know. And at least that's what the art teacher told me. So I figured at least this way they can sign up for a show, and I know they're interested in doing the artwork, you know. Now next month I have a scout troop that's showing.
Nice.
A lot of money up here for one
Yeah.
thing, and a lot of artists think they have to have really high prices,
Yeah.
and because the high prices they don't sell a lot. But some artists, if their prices are fairly reasonable and their work's good, or
or like somebody likes
somebody
it,
likes
yeah.
it, they'll
and it's a
buy
good-
it.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But this was a working farm. We had rabbits and goats and ducks and geese and chickens and 19 cats and 2 dogs and a pig.
Wow.
Yes, these were rabbit barns. And the kitchen here was the feed shed between the 2 buildings.
Oh my God.
And we had pens back here for the goats and the pig. And we ended up, I was milking 5 goats a day. We had all the rabbits and the ducks and the geese and the chickens, and of course all the cats.
That's a lot of work.
Yes, it's a lot of work. And I was very strong back then, you know, young. I was only 45. And the story of getting us into the animals is something else. But my husband went to town one day, and he came home and he said, well, to start with, when we were up north, he had a second job, and I did too. I was selling Tupperware when I wasn't working at the laser company that I worked for. And he worked in a gun shop selling guns, and instead of taking pay, he took guns.
Okay.
So when we moved down here, because they appreciate more than a savings account does.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the price of guns goes up so fast.
That's amazing.
So that's what we planned, and we had an arsenal that would put a drug dealer to shame. You know, when I see some of them on TV, I think, oh, that's nothing.
What did you do with those?
Well, we had a gun safe and everything, and he traded them and sold them. He had a federal firearms license, and he was doing work selling them to the CHP and the Sheriff's Department and some of the young Marines out here. And but he came home from town one day and he said to me, I traded a shotgun for 2 goats. And I said, what in the world are we going to do with 2 goats? And he said, well, they're both pregnant and one of them is already fresh giving milk. I said, okay. And who's going to milk this goat?
Of course.
I,
And who knows? I mean, it's not easy to make a goat.
right. He says to me, well, you said you were on a farm when you were a kid. I said, I was 5 years old and my aunt had a cow, not a goat. I don't know anything about goats. So back to the library, and he got a book on small farm animals, and he came home. And he said, I'll milk the goat. I said, fine, I'm going to go down the road and visit my parents, right? So I come back, and the goat was still full. And I said, okay, I'll milk the goat. Now, this goat knew that neither one of us knew what we were doing, right? We wouldn't have been any funnier if we'd had big red noses and great big shoes on, because I told him, hold the goat, and I'll milk the goat, okay? So I'm milking the goat. She kicks over the bowl. She steps in the bowl. She runs, gets away from him. We chase her around the pen. Oh, I mean, it was something.
Did she have a name?
Yes, we called her, let me see, Nanny.
Nanny?
Yeah.
Nanny was driving you crazy.
It was Nanny and Lady was the other one. So in the book, there was a feed stand that you build, and the goat gets up on it, and there's a tray the goat puts its head in, and you put some grain in there, and the goat puts its head in the slot, and, you know, and you sit there and milk. The only thing was, he says to me, well, can you wait until 9 o'clock in the morning to milk again? And I said, why? And he said, well, I'll have the feed stand built for you. The only thing was, he forgot one thing when he built it, the eyelets that you put in to put the bar across so the goat can't get out.
Okay.
So I'm milking the goat, right? The milk stand's working great. But the minute she got done eating, she lifted her head up and away she went. Yeah. He made goat cheese, and we sold goat's milk. At that time, I could go to some of the antique stores and stuff and still get the glass bottles that milk came in.
Yeah.
So I would bring them home and sterilize them and put goat's milk in. We were selling goat's milk. And goat's milk is richer than cow's milk.
It's better, yeah.
Because the cream doesn't separate from the milk.
Okay.
It stays in it.
Okay.
The only goats that the cream separates are Nubians.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
their milk, their cream separates. and you can make butter and cheese and stuff. But I mean, you can make cheese out of it anyway. But we had a Nubian and an Alpine, and then we got 3 more Nubians. So we had 5 goats altogether. And it was a very interesting endeavor.
I can imagine.
That was a thing that was called Timeless. Beautiful. Yeah, it is kind of a timeless sound.
So you have a band as well, right? So,
Well, we're having a solo guitarist playing tomorrow.
where did you get those musicians from?
Well, originally, I ran into these people that I knew had a band, and I asked them how much they charged, would they charge to play here, and they said nothing. They would play for tips.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, but I always put at least $50 in the tip jar for them. I
Okay,
want
we'll
to
make
make sure
sure.
they get gas money, right? And but usually it's about a 2 or 3 piece band. It's in the evenings when we have the evening shows. But in the daytime shows, a lot of times I'll have a solo artist here.
Mm-hmm.
One time I had a guy with electric bagpipes. That was really cool.
Wow.
Okay, one year we went from winter to summer, just overnight. There was no spring in between or nothing, and the rabbits just said, I'm not doing nothing. So all summer long, they didn't breed. And we're clear into February of the next year, right? And I don't know what we're going to do because we still have to feed them if they're not producing. And so one day my husband, it was so funny, was going to town and that morning, and I said, well, how many rabbits do you want me to breed, And he said, 6. I said, okay. So I went out, and all of a sudden they're breeding. So I bred 6 of them, When we first started raising rabbits, my husband decided that he got a book on tanning skins,
Yeah.
So he's going to tan some rabbit first, the ones we butchered here at the house. And the book said that you make this solution, you put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and you put the furs in there, and you let them set for so many days, right? And then then you take them out and you do something else to them, And anyway,
It's a complicated process.
well, yes. And my husband got as far as the solution and putting the furs in, and he opened the bucket 4 or 5 days later, I think it was, and threw up in the bucket, put the lid on, and said, "I ain't doing this." Rabbits are really funny. They multiply pretty good if the weather's right. Now,
Okay.
the ends of each one of these buildings has a big cement pan on it, and that was a big water cooler
Okay.
because we had to keep the buildings cool or they wouldn't breed. At that time, there was a ready market for rabbits.
Okay.
That's why we got in the rabbit business.
Okay.
There was a guy on the other side of town raising rabbits, and he talked to my husband, who was at the feed store for the goats one day, and told him how easy it was that there was a ready market for rabbits. You could get 55 cents a pound live weight for the rabbits, and grain was $40 or $85 a ton.
Okay.
So
it was a good-
yeah. So the next thing you know, we're building a rabbit barn. Okay.
Oh my God.
It's a good thing we knew about carpentry, but found out when we were building the house. But it was,
What about the geese and what else? Did you have chicken? Did you have chicken?
we had chickens and geese and ducks.
And ducks.
That cement pond that's out there,
Yeah.
that was for the geese.
Oh.
And we had another pen with one of those plastic wading pools in the ground. so about 6 years.
Wow. And then you had enough, or how did that?
Well, no, what happened was we had an illness go through the sheds, and the rabbits would not breed, and they got diarrhea, and they wouldn't gain weight. So we're still feeding them, but they're not gaining weight. We can't take them to the market or anything. And we had some people from the university down in Riverside come up and see if they could figure out what it was. We'd cleaned all the water lines and everything, and it's just something that ran its course. And
is that the coronavirus?
Yeah, kind of like that. And so all of a sudden they started gaining weight again, and everything was fine, and we were just getting back on our feet, and we had an earthquake.
Oh.
And it was a 6.8 earthquake. And the rabbit cages hung from the ceiling and so they began to sway, and it terrified the rabbits, okay? And it was on a Tuesday when they were having babies, and they just stomped those newborn babies right through the wire and then ran around in the cages and broke their necks.
Oh, my God.
It happened about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't even think to come out and check on them. And when we came out about 6:30 that morning, it was too late to even butcher any of them because they'd been dead too long,
Oh, my God. Is all of them?
No, not all of them. I mean, out of 165 rabbits in that shed, that was the breeding barn over there. Out of 125 does, we had 12 left.
Wow.
And
It's a
out
massacre.
of the bucks, we had 3 left. Breeding bucks.
So what did you do about those that? You just buried
It was
them?
all had to have to haul them
Did
to
you
the dump.
skin them, or you just
No.
sold them like
That
that?
skinning them is another story altogether. But anyway, the young ones in this shed did the same thing. They just panicked.
Wow.
So I told my husband, I said, you're going to have to start doing something that we don't have to feed it if it's not producing.
Yeah.
Because this is breaking our back. We sold the 10 acres across the valley we had to keep us out of the hole. But rabbits get everything people get. That's why they experiment on them. We've had people from all over the world here.
Yeah. Is it the majority coming from LA though, or is it?
Well, no, I get travelers from everywhere because the
Everywhere.
national park up here
Yeah.
gets a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's only so many rocks and Joshua trees that you can look at before you start looking for something else to do.
Yeah.
And then I pop up on the internet, It's funny because I don't even have a computer or a cell phone, but when they were looking for something to do in the high desert, I'm one of the top things to
Yeah,
see.
bad. Do you have, like when you have seen in 13 years, how many shows have you, how many artists have come through? Hundreds? 500?
Oh, more than that. Because some of the shows have more. Now, the show we had in here last month, there were 15 different artists
Okay.
showing in the entire building. Sometimes it's an individual artist, and sometimes they bring friends with them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like this. I tell them you can do whatever you want. The more artists you bring in, it's like pebbles in a pond. Each one has different friends. Even though they may be friends, they also have different
Yeah.
friends. So it brings more
More
people in.
Yeah.
On a cloudy day, when it's cold outside, I've got the month of May.
I am amazed at the quality of work that goes through this gallery.
Yeah.
And it would be hard to me, over all these years to pick out. Little girl sitting across from me with a baby, and she kept looking at me, and she said, "Didn't you used to be my bus driver?" And I said, "Probably did,"
I wonder how different it would be now to be a bus driver. What do you think?
Well, they have cameras in the buses
Okay.
now. They didn't back then,
Yeah.
They just started installing them. The last year I was driving, they had 2, and they'd transfer them from one bus to the other. It wouldn't always be on the same bus. And the kids never knew if it was on or not. And they had a couple fake ones that they'd put out, see. But then the kids got smart to the fact that if this little red light's not on, they're not being filmed, you know. When a driver was sick or had a trip, if they're taking a trip, I drive their bus. And they would send me over to Yucca Valley to drive over there because none of the other substitutes would go over there, and I would.
Okay.
I needed the money, and so you only get paid for the time you're driving. You don't get paid for the time you're sitting around. And so I drive all over the place. I mean, I've had kids moon me and do all kinds of things.
Yeah, Veronica was telling me.
Yeah. There's
story.
nothing more exciting than going down the road at 55 miles an hour in a 91 passenger bus and a firecracker going off in the bus.
Oh my God.
I looked up in the mirror, and the girls are like this, and I said, you know, I don't know who did that, but if another one goes off, I'm going to let the girls in the bus take care of whoever did it, and I'm not going to see a thing. And the girls are going, yeah, let us have him, you know. There was not another one, believe me, because he knew I meant it. I would have, too. I would have let those little girls take him apart.
Yeah, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl, my girl.
No, what happened was my third husband, well, he wasn't my husband yet, we were dating, and my parents had this, it was a one room cabin, and so they invited us down for Thanksgiving. We were living up in the Bay Area in San Jose. So we brought my daughter and her girlfriend down, and we came down and spent Thanksgiving here with my parents.
Make me feel this way, my girl, my girl.
And him and I were walking up the road here, and I said to him, listen. And it was so quiet, it almost made you dizzy. Because he was a machinist, and at that particular time I was working for Levi Strauss, so both of us were working with loud machinery all day long. So we decided that we would buy some land here and build on it and retire 5 years after we got married. And we bought 10 acres across the valley. But the next year when we came down to get married, my parents had this place up for sale because they had bought another place down at the other end of the airport, a little 2-bedroom house. And so we decided we'd buy this as a wedding present to ourselves in 1976. And then in 5 years we would move down here and retire, and we would build onto it. And that's what we did.
How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, if they
things are changing,
don't tear my desert up too bad, I don't mind. I mean, if they're good people.
Sweet perfume, those little
is it difficult to buy a piece of land?
Well, back then it wasn't. I mean, you could get stuff for a song and a dance here, you know. My parents gave us $500 off of the price of the place as a wedding present.
How has the landscape changed in all those years?
Well, the first 20 years I was here, nothing changed.
Okay.
And then we got, let's see, it was a Del Taco. And The only fast food restaurants we had here in town, there was a one way down at the other end of the town. It's called the Rib Company now. It used to be called Ma Penn's.
Oh yeah, we saw the rib. Yeah.
And then up on 2 Mile Road, Foster Freeze is up there.
Okay.
Okay. Those were the only two. And then Del Taco came in right there. You know where Andreas is with the big red roof?
Not sure.
Well, anyway,
yeah.
just to go in town. There's that's where the Jack in the Box is now.
Oh, okay.
There used to be a that's where Del Taco set up. And then Del Taco moved out to out by Stater Brothers, or on the highway going out towards Stater Brothers. And then Jack in the Box moved in there, and McDonald's got there before Jack in the Box. And anyways, slowly but surely started, adding stuff.
Because the population when you came here
Yeah.
must have been very small.
Yes, it was. Excuse me for a
Okay.
second. Hello.
And I want to walk with you my whole life through. Primrose Lane, life's a holiday on Primrose Lane. Just a holiday.
How has the COVID affected your?
Well, I've stayed open the whole time.
Okay, because you're outdoors.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I when COVID first hit and everything was closing down, and I stayed open, and I got some threatening phone calls. One lady called me and said, "I'm going to call the police on you. You can't keep that open and everything." I said, "Honey, you just go right ahead and call them."
Yeah.
And I said, "Nobody's forcing you or anybody else to come out here."
Of course.
Yeah. And, I guess she did call the health department, or somebody did, because I was sitting here and the gal came out, and I wasn't open yet. The door was closed. And the lady said, the COVID and everything, and she nailed something to the door. And I said, well, if I'm here and people come out, I open up for them. And she just went ahead and tacked it to the door. And I thought, well, hell, when the door's open, nobody can see it anyway. Solved that problem right away.
I don't think they can bother to come back here and check anyways.
No, I have a show and I have 175 people, and to me that's a small show.
Wow. Yeah.
But when sometimes it's only 75 or 100 people, and I think, what happened? Where's everybody? But I said, if you were more friendly, people would come.
Yeah.
That's all it takes to have people come and see you, is know that they feel welcome.
Laurel's favorite song, of course. I dedicate that to her and Frank. It's a good song, and I never forget that one.
Group of men tell me one time, "Oh, I'm not into that artsy fartsy stuff." And I said to them, everything you wear, everything you look at, every car you drive, every chair you pull out has been designed by an artist. So don't tell me you're not into that artsy fartsy stuff, because art is everywhere. And the biggest, greatest art of all is what God created. If you can't see the beauty in what He created, you're not looking.
The desert is such a space of freedom as well.
Yeah.
Has that freedom enter you?
Oh,
over
yes.
here? Yeah.
It feels so open and so relaxing
It is
and
relaxing.
peaceful.
Yeah.
It's like, this is where God.
So how many years has it been? 1976, you said?
We bought it in 76 and we moved down in 82.
Okay.
So in March of this coming year, I will be here 40 years
Wow.
on this property.
All sorts of things coming your way.
Well, we had one gal do a fire dance out here in the parking lot one night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fire dance.
Desert means freedom for people.
Yeah.
The what?
The desert means freedom for people.
Yeah.
So you're like the ultimate hippie.
I'm like the old what?
The ultimate hippie.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing I never was. I couldn't understand the hippies or the flower children. I just kind of weaved around them, you know, when I was
Because they're clinging to you.
What was the appeal to come to the desert from San Jose? Because San Jose
Well,
is kind
the-
of like very green and lush and.
Well, yeah, but it's so peaceful and quiet down
Yeah.
here, and from my window in the house, I can see 30 miles in 3 different directions. And when we were in the city, you couldn't see any further than across the street, you know.
Yeah.
And we just fell in love with the desert and decided this would be the place to retire.
Was it the right decision? Did you ever miss?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No.
you never missed going back to
No,
the Bay
uh-uh.
Area or to
No.
civilization as
No.
we know it.
No, matter of fact, every time I have to go down to Palm Springs to a doctor or something, I just grit my teeth, you know, because it's back to the city. Here, I never raised my voice to the kids. I lowered it.
Nice.
Because they were used to the drivers yelling at them and telling them, you know, stuff. And I remember one of my favorite was I had a fight on the bus. It was back when all the kids were saying, your mama this and your mama that type thing, you know. And this girl started it. She was talking to this boy, your mama this and your mama that. And I could hear them in the back of the bus. And these were junior high kids. And all of a sudden, he said something to her about her mama, and the fight was on. Anyway, I turned around, and every kid in the bus was standing up. And I looked at him, and I said, just like this, I said, sit down. And those kids dropped like the floor went off from under them. It was so funny. And I'm trying to keep a straight face, right? So I go back up, and I start the bus, and off we go, you know, and I just can't hold it finally. I just start laughing, you know. And one of the kids in the front says, what's she laughing about? And that made it even funnier, you know. And the kid next to her says, I know what she's laughing about. And when he told the other kids, and he was right, you know, and I just started cracking up. The tears were running down my face. I was laughing so hard.
one boy got off the bus, and I said, "You have a nice day." And he turned around and he looked at me and he says, "You goddamn bimbo." So I leaned out where he could see me and I said, "Darling, your bimbo's gonna be here Monday to pick you up, so you have a nice weekend, okay?" You should have seen his face. So Monday, when I got all the kids on the bus, because half of them had heard him, I said, "You can call me Lori, you can call me Laurel, you can call me Mrs. Seidl, you can call me bus driver, you can call me Bimbo, but that's all you can call me." So I didn't make a big deal about it, and all the kids laughed, you know. Well, a couple years after I had him on the bus, I was at the old Kmart store, walking across the parking lot, and this young man comes running out of the store. "Oh, there's my Bimbo," right? He comes and gives me a big hug, and his mother's behind him, and she said, "What did you call her?" I said, "It's okay, it's just a joke between him and I used to be his bus driver." But I figured, you know, if you make a joke out of it, and you don't let it get to you. One of the kids told me I was no fun because he couldn't make me mad. And I said, "Darling, you don't even want to see me mad, okay? You don't know." But try as they might, I always had a way of handling them. And I think it's because of all the years of bartending experience. If you've handled a bunch of drunks for years, you can handle kids anytime.
Yeah. Okay. That's the advice to new teachers.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. I got so much honey, the bees envy me. I got a sweeter song than the birds in the trees. I don't need fortune or fame. I got a sweeter song than the birds in the trees. Yeah, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way?
Our shows are always, the opening is always the first Saturday of the month. Not the end of the month, the first part of the month. Well, reschedule me for next month. I said, I don't hardly think that'll work because I'm booked so solid. There's no just, well, all at my convenience type thing, you know.
How far are you booked up now?
About a year and a half.
Okay, so it's, you know, having the gallery speed up.
I
the
have openings in March of 23 and June of 23 right
Okay.
now.
Wow.
Because this 1 to 5, which is a 4-hour day, is actually 9 to 5 for me. Book.
You have a book, yeah, so you make sure you always on top of it, yeah. And you do it without technology. That's another thing that was
Yeah.
that.
Those little roses bloom, and I want
See you later, Laurel. Okay.
Nice talking with you.
Yeah, I put sold on it. Okay. See you later.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I love that one.